Let me tell you something. I've worked cargo lifts on the edge of human space for 11 years. I've seen a lot of people come through Halvern Station. Loud ones, scared ones, people running from something, people running toward nothing. You get good at reading them. After a while, you can tell who's going to last out here and who's going to break inside a month. And I want you to remember that. Remember that I thought I was good at reading people. Because the day she walked in, I read her completely wrong. Everybody did. Her name was Della Voss. And I promise you, by the time this story is over, you'll understand why nobody on that station ever forgot it. Halvern Station sits at the far rim of the Kesport cluster. If you don't know where that is, don't feel bad. Most people don't. It's the kind of place they build when they need something to exist, but they don't want to think about it too hard. A refueling hub, a repair dock, a rock with lights on it, spinning slow in the dark. We were the last human outpost before the gray belt. That's what we call the empty stretch past our sector. Nothing out there. No colonies, no shipping lanes, no reason to go. Just black and cold and the occasional flicker of something that wasn't us. The station held about 400 people. Techs, dock workers, a few security officers who mostly broke up fights and confiscated smuggled liquor. There was a captain in name, an old man named Ruse who spent most of his days in the observation ring drinking bad coffee and watching stars he'd stopped nomming years ago. It wasn't a glamorous posting. Nobody chose Halvern. You got sent here or you ended up here or you hid here. That was the whole population, more or less. The sent, the stranded, and the hiding. I was in the second group. Long story, doesn't matter right now. What matters is the morning the transport came in. It was a Tuesday. I only remember because Tuesdays were resupply days, and resupply days meant I'd be on the lifts for 14 hours straight, hauling crates off the freighter while the pressure seals groaned like they hated their jobs. Which they did. Everything on Halvern hated its job. The doors, the lights, the recyclers. You could hear the whole station complaining if you stood still long enough. The transport docked at Bay 6. Standard passenger shuttle, beat to hell, one of those old civilian models with the mismatched hull panels where somebody had welded on repairs from a dozen different ships. It hissed and clanked and finally settled. I wasn't paying attention to who came off it. I had crates. I always had crates. But my buddy Tomas, dockhand, big guy, mouth like a broken airlock, he nudged me and said, "New meat." I looked up. There were maybe 6 passengers that day, a couple of returning workers, a merchant with too many bags, and then at the back, walking slow, a woman I'd never seen before. She was small, that was the first thing. Not fragile exactly, but small in a way that made you not look twice. Brown hair pulled back tight. Plain gray jacket, the kind you buy at any port for 6 credits. A single bag over one shoulder. No fancy boots, no gear, no attitude. She just walked off the shuttle and stood there for a second, blinking at the lights, the way everybody does when they first arrive and the recycled air hits them. "That's it," Tomas said. "That's the new hire." I shrugged, "Guess so." She looked like anybody. She looked like nobody. If you'd asked me to describe her 10 minutes later, I'm not sure I could have. Average height, quiet face, the kind of person your eyes just slide right past. I know how that sounds now. Believe me, I know. But that's exactly what she wanted. I understand that now too. Her assignment came through that afternoon. Della Voss, Maintenance Division, Junior Technician. Bottom rung. Same rung I started on. She'd be working the same shifts as me, more or less, patching conduits and cleaning filters and doing all the ugly little jobs that keep a station breathing. I found her that evening in the mess hall. She was sitting alone at the corner table, the one nobody sits at because it's right under the air scrubber and the noise never stops. She had a tray of the gray protein slop we all pretended was food, and she was eating it slow, methodical, like she was refueling instead of eating. I sat down across from her, figured I'd be friendly, new person and all. "Corbin," I said, tapping my chest. I run the lifts. You're on my shift rotation, so we'll be seeing a lot of each other." She looked up. Her eyes were this odd color, gray-green and steady, very steady. She didn't smile, but she didn't seem cold either, just calm. "Della," she said. "Yeah, I saw the roster. Where'd they ship you in from?" "Around." "Around where?" She took another bite, chewed, swallowed. "Everywhere and nowhere, you know how it is." I laughed a little. "Yeah, that's Halvern for you, everybody's from nowhere." She almost smiled at that, almost. We didn't talk much more that night. She was polite but closed, and I've learned not to push people out here. Everybody's got their walls. You respect the walls. That's the etiquette on the rim. But I remember walking away thinking she'd be fine. Quiet, hard worker, kept to herself, the kind who lasts. I was right about that part at least. The trouble started about a week later, and it started with Kellen Brandt. Brandt was a security officer. Big, loud, the kind of man who mistakes volume for authority. He'd been on Halvern 3 years, and he ran the station like a schoolyard, picking on whoever was smallest that week. New people were his favorite. He liked to test them, he said, see what they were made of. What he really liked was watching people flinch. He cornered Della in the corridor outside the maintenance bay. I was coming off a lift shift, and I caught the tail end of it. He had 2 of his buddies with him, Pell and Sorge, a couple of guys who laughed at everything Brandt said, whether it was funny or not. "So what I'm asking," Brandt was saying, leaning down into her space, "is what a little thing like you think she's gonna do out here. This isn't a spa. This is the rim. People die out here. You look like you'd cry if you broke a fingernail." His buddies laughed. Della just looked at him, calm as still water. "I'll manage," she said. "You'll manage," Brandt grinned at his friends. "She'll manage, hear that? Sweetheart, I've seen people twice your size crack in a month. What makes you special?" "Nothing," she said. "I'm not special." And she said it so plainly, so completely without fear, that even Brandt paused for a second. It threw him. He was fishing for a reaction, and he got nothing. No fear, no anger, no tears. Just a flat, tired kind of patience, like a woman waiting for a slow elevator. He recovered. Guys like Brandt always recover. "Yeah, well, watch yourself, new girl. Rim doesn't care how cute you think you are." He shoved past her, knocked her shoulder on purpose. She rocked back half a step, steadied herself, and kept walking like nothing had happened. I caught up to her. "Hey, you okay? Brandt's a piece of work. He does that to everyone." "I know the type," she said. "You want me to say something too?" "No," she said it fast, firm, then softer. "No, thank you, but no. Better if nobody notices me." I didn't understand that then. Better if nobody notices me. It stuck in my head, though. Weird thing to say. I'd understand it later. Here's the thing about Della Voss that started to bother me over the next few weeks. She was too good at her job. I don't mean she was fast, though she was. I mean she knew things. Things a junior tech has no business knowing. I watched her fix a coolant regulator that had our senior engineer stumped for 2 days. She didn't even open the manual. She just listened to it, put her hand on the housing, closed her eyes, listened to the hum, and then she opened a panel nobody thought to check and rerouted something, and the whole thing purred back to life. "Where'd you learn that?" I asked her. "Around," she said. Everything was around with her. Another time, the long-range sensor array went down. That's a big deal on a station like ours. The array is the only thing that lets us see anything coming across the gray belt. Without it, we're blind. The techs were up on the array for 6 hours and getting nowhere. Della walked past, glanced at the diagnostic readout on the wall panel, and said quietly, almost to herself, "That's not a fault. That's interference." The lead tech, a woman named Akefer, heard her. "What?" "The pattern," Della said. "It's not random. Faults are random. This is structured. Something's jamming the low band." She tilted her head, reading numbers I couldn't make sense of. "Narrow band too, precise. Whoever's doing it doesn't want you to know they're doing it." Akafor stared at her. There's nothing out there, the gray belt's empty. Della didn't answer right away. She looked at the readout a moment longer and something crossed her face. Just for a second. Something I'd never seen on her before. She looked afraid. Not the way you're afraid of a spider or a loud noise. The way you're afraid of something you recognize. Something you'd hoped you'd never see again. Then it was gone, and her face was calm again. Probably just a sensor ghost, she said. Ignore me, I'm just a junior tech. And she walked away. But I saw it. I saw the fear. And I filed it away the way you file away a loose thread you know you're going to pull eventually. The interference cleared up on its own the next day. The array came back online. Everybody forgot about it. Everybody except Della. And me, because I was watching her now. She started spending time in the observation ring at night. I found her there a few times when I couldn't sleep. She'd just stand at the big curved window looking out at the gray belt, that endless black nothing past our sector. She'd stand there for hours, not moving, just watching. Can't sleep either, I asked her one night. She didn't turn around. I don't sleep much. What are you looking for? Long pause. Nothing, she said. I'm hopping to see nothing. Nothing is good. Nothing means we're safe. Safe from what? She was quiet for so long, I thought she wasn't going to answer. Then she said very softly, you ever do a thing so big that it follows you? A thing you can't outrun, no matter how far you go, no matter how small you make yourself. I didn't know what to say to that. That's what I'm looking for, she said. I'm looking to see if it's caught up with me yet. And then she smiled, this small, sad smile, and said, don't mind me, Corbin, I'm just tired. Go get some sleep. I went, but I didn't sleep. Brant kept at her, of course. Men like that always do. She was an easy target, small, quiet, alone, no friends to back her up. Except me, and I wasn't exactly muscle. He escalated. Started assigning her the worst jobs, the ones that were technically security's call to distribute. Waste reclamation. Hull crawl inspections in the freezing outer maintenance shafts. Double shifts. She took all of it without complaint. Just did the work and went back to her quarters and came out the next day and did it again. I think her silence made it worse. Brant wanted a reaction. Her calm was an insult to him. Every day she didn't crack, he took it as a personal challenge. It came to a head in the mess hall. We were all eating, maybe 40 people in there. Brant came in with Pell and Sorge, got his tray, and instead of sitting at his usual table, he walked over to Della's corner and sat down right across from her. Uninvited. His buddies flanked her, one on each side, boxed her in. The room got quiet. Everyone could feel it. That electric drop in the air when a fight's about to start, or worse. So, Brant said, loud enough for everyone to hear. New girl, been meaning to ask. Where'd you really come from, because I ran your file? Della set down her fork, slowly. Did you? I did, and you know what's funny? There's almost nothing in it. Della Voss, junior tech, transferred from a supply depot that, get this, doesn't seem to exist anymore. Records all sealed. No family, no history, nothing. He leaned in. Now a suspicious man might think you're hiding something. A dangerous man, maybe, or a criminal, or a spy. The word spy landed heavy. People shifted. Out here on the rim, spy wasn't a joke. There were things past the gray belt that would love to know how our stations were defended. Della looked at him, still calm, but there was something under the calm now, a stillness that was different from before, the stillness of very deep water, the kind that doesn't ripple because there's something huge underneath holding it flat. You want to know where I came from, she said. That's what I asked. No, you don't, she said. You really don't trust me. Brant laughed. Is that a threat? It's a kindness, Della said. I'm asking you to leave it alone, for your own sake, please. That word please did something to Brant. He heard it as weakness, as begging. His grin went cruel. Or what? He said. He reached across the table and grabbed her tray, flipped it. Slop went everywhere, splattered across the front of her jacket, dripped onto the floor. His buddies laughed. "You gonna cry now, new girl? Go on, cry, let's see it." The mess hall was dead silent. Della looked down at the mess on her jacket. Then she looked up at Brant. And for 1 second, one single second, I saw it again. That thing behind her eyes, except this time it wasn't fear. It was the opposite of fear. It was the look of someone who has decided, right there, that they are done being small. But she caught herself. I watched her catch herself. She took a breath, and she pushed it back down, that whatever it was, forced it back into whatever cage she kept it in. Her hands, which had gone very still, relaxed. "Okay," she said quietly. She stood up. "Okay, I'll clean this up." And she got a cloth and she wiped up his mess, on her knees, in front of the whole room, while Brant grinned and his friends laughed and 40 people watched and said nothing. I've never been more ashamed of anything in my life than I am of that moment. I sat there. I said nothing. Because I was afraid of Brant, and because everybody else was too, and because that's what fear does. It makes cowards out of decent people. She cleaned it all up. She stood. And she said without any heat at all, "Are we done?" Brant, satisfied, waved a hand. "Yeah, we're done for now." She walked out. And I told myself that night that I'd make it right, that I'd be her friend for real, that I'd stand up next time. I told myself a lot of things. I didn't know that next time was going to be so much bigger than a mess hall. It was 3 days later that the array went down again. Not interference this time. This time it went fully dark, total blackout. Every long-range sensor on the station dead in the same instant, which shouldn't be possible. The array had redundancies, backups, failsafes. For all of it to go at once you'd need something deliberate. The station went to alert. Not full alarm, not yet, but that low amber standby that makes your stomach tight. Captain Ruse came out of the observation ring for the first time in weeks. The engineering crews scrambled, and I stood on the docking level, my lift shift forgotten, watching people run. That's when I saw Della. She was standing very still in the middle of the corridor, and everyone was rushing past her, and she wasn't moving at all. She was looking at the dead sensor panel on the wall, the one showing nothing but static. I went to her. "Hey, what's happening? Is it interference again?" She didn't answer for a moment. When she did, her voice was different, flat, cold, absolutely steady. "No," she said, "it's not interference, it's a curtain." "A what?" "A sensor curtain. You black out the target's eyes right before you arrive. You do it in the last few minutes so they can't call for help and they can't see how many of you there are." She was still staring at the static. "It's a very specific tactic. Only one kind of thing uses it." My mouth had gone dry. "What kind of thing?" She turned and looked at me. And I'll tell you, I have never seen a human face look the way hers looked in that moment. It wasn't scared. It was worse than scared. It was certain. "The Vashariin," she said. "They're called the Vashariin." I'd never heard the word. But the way she said it, the weight she put on it, I felt it in my spine. "They're a hive fleet," she said quietly. "They move between the dead spaces, the empty sectors, the places nobody watches. They find an outpost, they blind it, and then they come in fast and they take everything, people, materials, the station itself. They strip it down to the bones and they move on, and nobody ever knows what happened. The station just goes quiet. Everyone thinks it was an accident, a reactor failure, a hull breach." She shook her head slowly. "It's never an accident." "How do you know all this?" My voice cracked. "Della, how do you know any of this?" She looked at me for a long moment. "Because I've seen it before," she said. 3 times, I've seen them come 3 times. "And what happened?" Something moved across her face. Something old and heavy and full of ghosts. "I stopped them," she said. 3 times I stopped them." I want you to understand what I was feeling in that moment. This quiet junior tech, this small woman who cleaned Brant's slop off the floor on her knees 3 days ago, this person my eyes slid right past on the docking level a month back. She was standing in front of me telling me she'd single-handedly stopped invasions. Not once, 3 times. And the crazy part, I believed her. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense, but there was something in the way she said it. Not bragging, not even pride, just fact. The way you'd say the sky is dark or the air recycler is broken. Flat, tired, certain fact. And underneath it, something that broke my heart a little. Because she said it like a woman confessing a crime. Della, I said, if they're coming, if that's really what's happening, we need to tell the captain. We need to sound the alarm, we need to. And tell him what, she said, that a junior tech says an invisible fleet nobody's ever heard of is about to attack. He'll lock me in medical for a psych eval. By the time anyone believes me, they'll already be inside the docking bays. She shook her head. No, there's no time for the right way. There's never time for the right way. Then what do we do? She looked at me. And here's the thing, for just a second I saw her weighing it. Weighing whether to pull me into whatever this was, whether to let me help, whether I could be trusted, or whether I'd just get in the way and get killed. I guess I passed because she said, how well do you know this station, the real bones of it, the old systems, the parts nobody uses anymore? Better than anyone, I said. I've been crawling around in the guts of this place for 11 years. Why? Because the Vashariin blinded the array, she said. But they don't know everything about this station. They can't. Every station's different underneath. The old bones are different. She was already moving, walking fast toward the maintenance shafts, and I was hurrying to keep up. The array is the station's eyes, but there's another way to see. An older way. Most stations decommissioned it decades ago. But a place like Halvern, a place this old, this forgot, I'm betting they never bothered to rip it out. See what? What are you talking about? She stopped at a rusted access hatch, one I'd walked past 1,000 times and never opened. The paint was peeling off it. A stenciled warning faded almost to nothing. Passive gravitic sensing, she said. It doesn't send out a signal, it just feels the mass moving through space. Big things bend the dark around them. This system feels the bend. She put her hand on the hatch wheel. You can't jam it because it's not listening for anything, it's just feeling. And the Vashariin won't be expecting it. Nobody uses it anymore. She looked at me. But somebody has to go down there and wake it up. And I can't do it and coordinate the rest at the same time. The rest of what? She didn't answer that. She just spun the hatch wheel. It shrieked, rust flacking off, and swung open onto a black shaft that dropped down into the oldest part of the station. The part I knew better than my own hands. Corbin, she said, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Because if you say yes and then you freeze, people die. So think about it before you answer. Okay. Are you the kind of man who runs toward the fire, she said, or the kind who runs away from it? Because 3 days ago you watched me clean a floor and you didn't say a word. I'm not judging you for that. Most people wouldn't. But I need to know which one you are right now before it matters. That landed hard. It was fair. It was completely fair, and it hurt like hell because she was right. I thought about it. I really did. I thought about Brant and the mess hall and the shame that had sat in my chest for 3 days like a stone. I don't know, I said honestly. I froze last time, but I've been hatting myself about it every second since. So maybe that's your answer. Maybe I'm the kind who freezes and then can't live with it and swears he won't do it again. I swallowed. Give me the chance to not freeze, please. She looked at me for a long second. Then she nodded, just once. Good enough, she said. Go down. Follow the main trunk shaft to the aft ballast section. You're looking for a bank of old sensor drums, big cylinders, probably covered in 50 years of dust. There'll be a manual power coupling. Reconnect it and flip the drums live. When they come online, they'll start feeding data to the old auxiliary console in the sub-control room. I'll be there. Understand? Aft ballast, sensor drums, power coupling, flip them live. I nodded. Got it. Go fast. We probably have less than an hour. I climbed into the hatch. Before I dropped down, I looked back at her. Della, who are you, really? She almost smiled. Right now, she said, I'm just a junior tech who's about to have a very bad day. Go, Corbin. And I went down into the dark. The old bones of Halvern Station are a different world. Up top, everything's lit and warm and humming. Down in the ballast levels, it's cold and black and dead quiet. These are the sections they sealed off decades ago, the parts of the station that were built when it first went up and then abandoned as the population shrank. Nobody comes down here except me, and I only come when something breaks bad enough to matter. I dropped through the trunk shaft, my headlamp cutting a thin cone through the dark. My breath fogged in front of me. It's below freezing in the ballast levels, no point heating dead space. The metal groaned around me, that same complaining sound the whole station makes, except down here there's nobody to hear it but the dark. I followed the trunk shaft aft, past the old water reclamation tanks, dry and rusted, past a corridor where the emergency lights had died so long ago the bulbs had gone green with age. My footsteps echoed. Somewhere far off, water dripped. And the whole time, one thought hammered in my skull. An invisible fleet is coming, and the only thing standing between us and them is a quiet woman who cleaned a floor on her knees. 3 times, she'd said. I stopped them 3 times. I found the sensor drums right where she said they'd be. Aft ballast, tucked into a bay behind a bulkhead so old the door didn't seal anymore. 6 massive cylinders, each one taller than me, wrapped in dust and cabling, passive gravitic sensing. I'd seen them 100 times and never known what they were. Just old junk. Just more of Halvern's forgotten guts. The power coupling was a manual lever unit seized with age. I braced my feet and hauled on it. Nothing. Hauled again. It gave a 1/4 inch and stopped. I grabbed a length of pipe off the floor, jammed it over the lever for leverage, and threw my whole weight into it. The lever slammed home with a bang that echoed through the whole ballast section. For a second, nothing. Then the drums began to wake up. It started as a hum deep, so low I felt it in my chest before I heard it. The dust on the cylinders shivered and slid off in sheets. Old indicator lights, dead for 50 years, flickered and steadied into a dull amber glow. The whole bank of drums powered up, one after another, that deep hum rising into a resonant thrum I could feel in my teeth. And in my earpiece, I hadn't even known she'd slipped a calm bead into my hand before I climbed down. Della's voice crackled to life. I've got a feed, she said. The drums are live. Good work, Corbin, good work. A pause, then quieter in a voice I'll never forget. Oh. Oh, I said. What's oh, Della, what do you see? Silence on the comm, just her breathing. Della, how many? When she answered, her voice had gone very flat and very calm, and somehow that was more terrifying than any scream. More than last time, she said. A lot more. Here's what I've since learned about the Vashariin from Della in the months after. I'm going to tell it to you the way she told it to me, because I think you need to understand what she was and what she'd done before you understand what happened next. The Vashariin are old, older than any human record. They don't build, they don't create, they consume. They drift through the dead sectors of the galaxy in vast hive fleets, and when they find something worth taking, they take it and they leave nothing behind. Not survivors, not evidence, not even wreckage. They strip a place so completely that it's as if it never existed. For a long time, humans didn't even know they were real. Stations went dark, colonies went silent, and people said, oh, reactor failure, hull breach, terrible accident, so sad. Nobody connected the dots because there were no dots to connect. That was the whole point. The Vashariin were invisible, ghosts that ate worlds. Until, 12 years before she walked off that shuttle onto Halvern Station, a young officer named Della Voss watched them take her home. She was 19, stationed at a colony called Marin's Rest, out on a different edge of human space. The array went dark. Everyone thought it was a fault, And then the Vashariin came through the docking bays, and in one night 4,000 people died. Except one. She survived because she was down in the guts of the station when it happened, exactly like I was now, fixing something nobody else could be bothered to fix. She survived by hiding in the dark while the thing that killed everyone she loved swept through the halls above her. And she spent that entire night, alone in the cold and the black, listening to it happen, listening to the people she knew go quiet, one by one. She should have died down there. She wanted to. But instead, alone, terrified, 19 years old, she got angry. And she started thinking. Because she was the only person alive who'd seen the Vashariin and lived, and that meant she was the only person alive who could learn how to fight them. And she did. Over the next 12 years, she became the galaxy's only living expert on a threat the galaxy didn't even believe in. She studied everything, every station that had gone dark, every accident. She mapped their movements. She learned their tactics, the sensor curtain, the dead sector routes, the way they always struck the forgotten places, the ignored places, the outposts nobody would miss. And 3 times, 3 separate times at 3 separate outposts, she got there first. She saw the signs. She knew what was coming when nobody else did. And she stood in front of the storm, alone, with nothing but what she'd learned and whatever she could scrape together, and she turned it back. 3 invasions. 3 stations that should have gone dark and didn't. 3 times the number of dead at Marin's Rest, saved. Thousands of people who went to sleep that night never knowing how close they'd come, never knowing that the quiet woman who fixed their conduits had spent the night keeping death from their door. And every single time when it was over she left, before anyone could thank her, before anyone could ask questions, before anyone could turn her into a story. Because here's the thing she told me, the thing that finally made me understand her. Vashariin hunt the noticed places, Corbin, she said. The big stations, the important ones, the ones with names people know. So I made myself small, I made myself forgettable. I became a junior tech nobody looks at twice, and I moved from forgotten outpost to forgotten outpost, staying invisible because the moment I become someone, the moment there's a legend, the woman who fights the Vashariin, they'll come for me specifically. And I can't stop them and be a target at the same time. Better if nobody notices me. That's what she'd said that first week, when Brant shoved her. Better if nobody notices me. I finally understood. She wasn't hiding because she was weak. She was hiding because she was the single most dangerous human being to the Vashariin who had ever lived, and being invisible was the only weapon she had that never ran out. She let Brant humiliate her. She cleaned his slop off the floor on her knees. She swallowed every insult and took every worst shift without complaint. Not because she couldn't stop him. Because stopping him would mean being seen. And she decided, a long time ago, that a bruised ego was a price worth paying to stay a ghost. Because staying a ghost was how she saved people. Even people like Brant. Even people who didn't deserve it. Especially them, maybe. But I didn't know all that yet, standing in the freezing ballast section with the sensor drums thrumming around me. All I knew was her voice in my ear, gone flat and cold, telling me there were more of them than last time. A lot more. Talk to me, Della, I said. What's the plan? You've done this 3 times, you know how to stop them, so what do we do? Long pause. Della. The plan, she said slowly, was always the same the first 3 times. Get to the sensors, confirm the threat, then get to the station's core systems and set up a resonance cascade in the docking bay shielding. When they come in through the bays, you invert the shields and the cascade tears their lead ships apart in the airlock. It funnels them into a kill zone and collapses it. You break their first wave and they retreat. The Vashariin don't fight when they lose the advantage. They're scavengers, not warriors. Bloody their nose and they run. Okay, that sounds like a plan, so let's do that. We can't. My stomach dropped. Why not? Because that plan works when there are 12 ships, she said. Maybe 15, I'm reading 40. Corbin, there are 40 ships out there and they're not coming in through one bay. They're spreading out. They're coming in through all of them at once. A breath. They've never done that before. They've never committed a force this size to a single outpost. There's no reason to. Halvern's not worth it. It doesn't make sense. And then she went quiet, and I heard her breathing change. I heard the exact moment she understood something. "Oh," she said very softly. "Oh no." "What, Della, what?" "They're not here for the station," she said. "Then what are they here for?" "Me," she said. "They're here for me. They figured it out. After 3 times they finally noticed the pattern, the same 3 stations that should have gone dark and didn't. They realized someone's been stopping them, and they backtracked the same way I tracked them, and they figured out where I went." Her voice was hollow. 40 ships. That's not an invasion force, Corbin. That's a hunting party. They came here to kill one person, and they brought 40 ships to do it, because after 3 times, they're not taking any chances. The thrum of the sensor drums filled the silence. "Della," I said, "if they're here for you." "Then everyone on this station dies to get to me," she finished. "Yes, 400 people, because I chose to hide here, because I brought them here without knowing it." I heard something in her voice then that I'd never heard before. Not fear, guilt. Enormous, crushing guilt. 400 people are going to die because I wanted somewhere quiet to disappear. "That's not your fault." "It doesn't matter whose fault it is." It was the first time I'd ever heard her raise her voice. It cracked through the calm and then went silent, and when she spoke again she was calm again, but it was a terrible, forced calm. "It doesn't matter. What matters is what I do now, and there's only one thing I can do." "Which is what?" She didn't answer right away. "Della, which is what?" "Get everyone off the station," she said. "There's an old evacuation transport in Bay 2. Long range. It's been in mothballs for years, but I checked it my first week here. Old habit, I always find the exit first, and it can fly. 400 people is over capacity, but they'll fit if they pack tight. Captain Ruse can get them out the far side, away from the Vashariin Fleet, and run dark for the Kesport Corps. They'll make it. If they leave now, they'll make it." "Okay, good, great plan. So we get everyone on the transport and—" "Not we," she said. And that's when I understood what she was actually telling me. "Della, no. The Vashariin are here for me," she said. "If I'm on that transport, they'll chase it, and it can't outrun 40 ships, and everyone on it dies anyway. But if I stay," her voice was so calm, so terribly calm, "if I stay, and I make sure they know I'm staying, they'll focus everything on the station, on me. And the transport slips out the far side while they're busy. They won't even see it leave." "You're talking about staying behind, alone, on a station about to be swarmed by 40 ships." "Yes. That's suicide." "Probably," she agreed. "But it's 400 people, Corbin, against one. That's not even a hard math problem." A pause. "It's the easiest math problem there is." I stood there in the freezing dark, and I felt something break open in my chest. "There has to be another way," I said. "You're the smartest person I've ever met. You've beaten them 3 times. There has to be." "There's no time to be clever," she said gently. "Not tonight. Tonight it's just the simple, ugly answer. Get everyone out. Hold the door. That's the whole plan." A breath. "Now I need you to do something for me, and I need you to not argue, because we don't have time to argue." I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up. "Corbin." "Yeah," I managed. "Get out of the ballast section. Get up to Bay 2. Find Captain Ruse and tell him everything. He won't want to believe you, so tell him about the array, tell him about the sensor curtain, tell him to look at the gravitic feed I'm about to route to the bridge. It'll show him 40 ships and he'll stop arguing real fast. Then get on that transport and get everyone off this station. Can you do that?" "Della, can you do that?" And here's where I have to tell you the truth about myself, even though it doesn't make me look good. Because for 1 second, 1 shameful second, every part of me wanted to say yes, wanted to run for that transport, wanted to live. That's the animal in all of us, the part that just wants to survive. And it screamed at me to take the exit she was offering. But then I thought about the mess hall. I thought about kneeling. I thought about her cleaning up Brant's cruelty on her knees while I sat there and said nothing, and the 3 days of shame that followed, the stone in my chest. And I thought not again, never again. No, I said. Silence on the comm. Corbin. I'll tell Ruse, I said. I'll get everyone on the transport, I'll do all of that. But I'm not getting on it, Della, I'm staying. You're not doing this alone. You'll die. Then I'll die doing something that matters, I said, and my voice was shaking but the words were steady. For the first time in my whole useless life, I'll die doing something that matters. You gave me a choice back at the hatch. Run toward the fire or away from it. Well, I'm choosing the fire. A very long silence. And then Della Voss laughed. Just a small, surprised, tired laugh. The first real laugh I'd ever heard from her. You know, she said, in 12 years doing this 3 times I never once had anyone stay. Not once. Everyone always took the transport. A pause. I always told myself I preferred it that way. Cleaner. Nobody else to worry about. And now, she said quietly, I think maybe I was just lonely and I'd stopped letting myself notice. And I swear, standing in that freezing dark, with 40 ships full of monsters bearing down on us, I felt like the richest man in the galaxy. Because a woman who'd faced the end of the world 3 times alone had just admitted she was glad, for once, not to be alone. Okay, she said, and her voice firmed up. Okay, if you're staying, then you're useful, and if you're useful, then we're not just holding the door. We're going to make them regret coming here. The old fire was back in her voice now, the thing I'd seen behind her eyes in the mess hall. That decision to stop being small. Get to Ruse, get the transport moving, and then meet me in the sub-control room. Because you and I, Corbin, are going to teach 40 Vashariin ships why you don't hunt the person who's been hunting you. How? Because they think they're coming here to kill a hiding woman, she said, and there was steel in it now, cold and bright as a drawn blade. They don't know they just cornered her, and there is nothing in this galaxy more dangerous than something that's done running. The sensor drums thrummed around me. Far out in the dark, 40 ships crossed the gray belt toward us. And I climbed up out of the ballast section, toward the light, toward the fire, toward whatever came next.